Hello, welcome to another pen talk, and there's been a lot of them lately. Hopefully you're enjoying them. Thanks for watching, and thanks for experiencing and sharing my adventure. As you recognize, the package is a DHL Express package, and it's from Italy. It arrived in less than 48 hours from when the auction closed from my favorite Delta pen supplier in Italy. So I thought we would use our trusty little knife to open up the package. Recognize the emblem and wrapping style of the pen seller in Italy. They do securely wrap the pen. I think they've been shipping for a while, at least for a couple of years as far as I've been able to track. And as we see, it's a Capri model. I'm not used to this filming, I'm on a different tripod. And this is a Broad Fusion Nib. Broad Fusion Nib. And we see the ubiquitous peanuts. We will dispose of the peanuts in their appropriate container. The static electricity is certainly not helping the removal of the peanuts. And what we're presented with is a beautiful Delta box. We have a set of cartridges over here, and I see some peanuts have made their way into this, but we'll get them out later. So as we remove the container of the pen, we can see it comes with the Delta literature, discusses the style of pen. I have the Grande version, also comes in a smaller version in lighter blue. A nice description in English, and we have the identification, the certification from the seller. This is pen number 2436. Sold on April 7th of 2015. We have the screws that hold down this nice plastic cover. There's always a little bit of dirt on them, but we'll clean that off later. We undo one screw. These don't have the standard Delta nib on the cover, and as we rotate and expose the pen, it is securely maintained, and it looks as good as I expected. A little bit thinner in the barrel than I had thought it would be, but the shape is very nice, the color is very nice, and as I've experienced before, the acrylics, the Delta acrylics, are excellent. I got this in a Broad Fusion Nib. I find the Fusion Nibs to be more enjoyable to write with than the gold. I have a 14 and 18 karat Delta gold nib. So we'll look at the pen a little bit more in detail later under different lighting conditions, but I wanted to share with you the first view and the unboxing. We're now going to take a more close-up look of the Delta Capri Grande, Marina Grande, part of the Capri collection. Delta makes a lot of collections. There's two fountain pens in this collection, and also the classic rollerball ballpoint. The box is a good presentation. The plastic cover, which is common with this type of presentation box, sometimes has a view window in it. This one does not. It has a scene of the island of Capri. Tastefully done and functional. And the pen. It's very securely held within that nice hourglass shaped design. So let's put the box away and take a look at the pen. The dark blue resin and the light blue resin are supposedly to illustrate and show off the colors of the seas around the island of Capri. Most of the Delta pens have stories behind them, and the literature provided with the pen goes into great detail and depth as to what that history is, why they chose the particular items. The metal at the top of the cap is supposedly representative of a timepiece in the main piazza. The rollerball clip, a little bit different design than you may have seen on some of the other Deltas. And they talk about a special alloy that gives it its springiness, and it is, I think, just the right amount of spring tension. The band at the top of the barrel is also representative of a classic Capri motif, and it has the .925 sterling silver hallmark in it. I'm hoping that the muted sunlight, it's a cloudy day here today, lets you show off again the depth of the special resin, as Delta likes to call it, that they use in hand turn for their pens. There's a classic engraving that gives you the style of the pen and the fact that it's Marina Grande. As with all Delta pens, at least all the ones that I've had, it has a unique number on it, 2436. At the top of that, it has an engraving that indicates Delta, the manufacturer, and also lets you know that it's Italian, made in Italy. This pen, I haven't really gone into some of my other Delta videos about the fact that Delta is very proud of their all-Italian manufacturing, their hand making of the pens. There's a video on that goes into some detail on how that's done, and all I can judge it is on the finished product, which is excellent, exquisite. This pen's a little bit smaller than any of my other Deltas, but still very functional and very usable. Unscrew cap. For this particular pen, I purchased it with the Fusion Nib, and I got this Fusion Nib in Broad. Again, they do a beautiful job engraving on the nib the Delta emblem. Delta. It's a Fusion Nib, so what you see in gold color is 18 karat gold on top of a steel nib. There's been some discussions on some of the boards about tipping material, and I've looked at all my Delta Fusion Nibs. I have a few of them, and they all, to me, appear to have excellent tipping material, even the extra fine one that I have. That's at the end of the steel nib. Based on the way these write, I would expect that the tipping material really is what gives you that writing experience when the nib's on paper. And all Deltas have a great feedback that I find very pleasurable. It enhances the writing experience, lets me write for much longer periods of time before there's any fatigue that sets in. Again, I cannot speak more highly of this resin. It's a muted blue, so it's a very nice color combination. As you can see in the cap, there are specks of lighter blue, kind of what you might see in a rolling sea where, you got the depth in the water in the ocean. Just beautiful. So let's ink this pen up and see how this Broad Fusion Nib performs on paper. I thought we might take a look at the size of the pen before we actually do the writing sample. So I've brought 3 pens in, one a Delta and 2 from the German manufacturing companies. The orange one is, hopefully you might recognize from my other video, is the mid-size Dolce Vita Oro. It has the greatest girth of any of the pens that I have. It is a little bit on the short side, but what it doesn't have in length, it certainly makes up for in girth. As you can see, the Capri is probably much thinner than the Delta Oro. So the overall dimensions are 136 millimeters, and it weighs 27 grams, which is a pretty common mid-weight. I would say it's a little bit heavier than a light pen, but certainly nowhere near in the fatigue category for weight. The cap weighs 10 grams, so the 2/3 of the weight is in the barrel, and this is without ink in the pen. Posted, it's a very nice 147 millimeters or 5 3/4 inches. Unposted, it's an inch smaller or about 26 millimeters shorter. And the section is 11 to 12 millimeters and it's 13 millimeters in length. I'll just uncap these and just kind of show you the business side of the pens. Hopefully you'll find this comparison of interest. The order also has a Fusion Nib, which is in extra fine, and I find it to be a phenomenal extra fine writer. And you know, the section in here is probably a little bit thinner at the bottom than the Pelican 800, but still, I would say a little bit thicker than your average pen, and the length is a little bit longer. So much for the comparisons, and let's get to the business side, the writing. It's nice to have an ink color that complements the pen. I went through my collection of inks. I certainly don't have a small collection, but it is not as large as some of our fellow pen aficionados might have. I've selected the Noodler's Navajo Turquoise. I think it's a lighter blue color that I'm used to using, but one of the reasons for the broad nib is to lay down a little bit of ink that I think will make this color of ink look very good. So we'll uncap the ink. As you can see, it's interesting color in the top of the cap. It's a greenish blue, which I consider somewhat similar color that you might see in an ocean type of setting, depending upon what ocean you're looking at. And take a little quick look at the label. Noodler's also does a nice little artwork on their labels. It's a standard piston converter that comes with the deltas. It's the delta name at the top of the converter. It's a screw-in converter, so it's very secure. I've noticed that the delta pens all seem to have a different method of how the section is done. This one has metal. Most of the other ones I do have metal. Inside the barrel it's plastic, but they have a metal ring here, so it kind of makes for a very secure and useful way of the section and the barrel to fit together. It has a long section here, which I think also helps with the security, and I think it may change the feed. My guess is, and this is total conjecture, is that I think each of these pens may have an individual or a few individuals that take the design of the pen from start to finish, and they all have their own ideas on feeds and sections. I mean, the feed seems to be fairly common. People have said it's a Bakelite feed. I have not taken the nibs and feeds apart because they seem to write extremely well right out of the box, and there's no need to fiddle with them. I would been calling the feed plastic, but people say they're Bakelite feeds. It's kind of hard to me to really tell the difference when the nib is very finished. You know, it's obviously a black material, but that's extremely common for feeds. So we're going to bring the piston down to the bottom, insert the ink in up to the section. We're going to draw up ink once. As you can see, it leaves about a couple centimeters at the top, and we'll do it one more time, and that should give us almost a full complete fill. These converters hold a decent amount of ink. I haven't had an issue with them running out with daily use of writing, which I could write 5 or 6 pages easily. And the broad nib, we're going to lay down a lot of ink. So I've used the broad 14 karat on my Dulce Vitae Zen, and that one has survived many days of writing without worrying about running out of ink. So we cleaned off the nib and section, the important capping of the ink. We'll assemble barrel and section. A lot of threads there, very secure. I feel Delta pens, they come with a lifetime guarantee, at least the majority of them do. And I think their design, manufacturing, engineering, the materials that used will easily support a very long life. I think these pens are designed to be handed down from generation to generation, which is one of the nice things about fountain pens, is they have that life to them. This fits, to me, almost perfectly in the hand. The balance is excellent. I find all the Delta pens to be extremely good writing instruments. I have a couple other pens that I would say are more form than function, but Delta, I think, is able to combine both of those features very well. We're on Tomo River paper. And the nib just glides across the paper. It is an extremely fine writing experience. And this is the Fusion Nib in Broad. I love it. And I've used this turquoise ink in some other pens that have finer nibs, and I don't felt it was as usable. It was fairly faint line, but this works extremely well on this, in this pen, which is what I had hoped for. One of the things that's nice when you start writing with a lot of pens and a lot of different inks is you kind of get a way of pairing them together. Tomo River paper, and it's a wet writer. I kind of expected that. I think the turquoise ink is also somewhat slower drying ink. Some of the Noodler's inks react to the cellulose in the paper, and that accelerates their drying. Bulletproof Black is a great one. I use that for most of my writing that I want to maintain permanency for. And as I mentioned before, this couldn't be smoother, but it still lets you know you're writing on paper. So there is a good sense of feedback, which I just love on Delta. The Delta pens that I have, part of the pens sometimes glide too much across a piece of paper. Some of them sing, but this one is excellent. Yeah, that is very terrible. And that's not the TV show, TV channel. So hopefully you appreciate this little view. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you later. Enjoy your writing.